Hi, I'm Dan Sweet. I'm Director of Public Relations and Communications for Helicopter Association International, and we appreciate that you took time out of your busy schedule to join us for our webinar today. We are really excited. Heli Expo is just around the corner, and one of the things that we're going to be announcing is a number of new services and benefits for members. And one of them we realize requires a little bit more explaining and attention. We also need your input on these as well. And so we today are having a webinar where we will explain our new benefit for legal support. Joining us today, we have a couple of people who are longtime friends of HAI. Our first one, Sarah McLeod, is the managing member of legal firm Obadal, Filler, McLeod and Klein, and has an extensive background in aviation law. She is offering her experience to HAI as a contractor to help set up and populate this new HAI legal services benefit. With her is, there we go, Brent Levanto, who is the VP of operations at Obadal, Filler, McLeod and Klein, where he manages firm and client communications in conjunction with regulatory and legislative policy initiatives. He's also been assisting Sarah in developing this legal services member benefit for HAI. From our staff and kind of leading the charge on this project has been Zach Noble. Zach is a former U.S. Army pilot who has also worked in the air ambulance industry. He's not only a helicopter pilot, he also flies airplanes. And on top of that, he's an A&P mechanic. And today he even thinks he looks like a mechanic. So the fact that he flies and works on them, that's why he's director of operations and maintenance. And joining us also is Teresa Farmer. She's our new assistant director of membership. Not really new, she's been around with us for a little while. She's worked in the membership aspect of association world for over 10 years and recently came to us. She has 3 kids and a golden retriever and apparently spends her free time, I'm not even sure what that means anymore, attending her kids' sporting events. Our webinars are interactive. We do encourage you to ask questions, especially when legal services are involved. We ask you to please go ahead and ask questions. Best way to do that, most of you have been on our webinars before, is to use the question module. On most computers, that's down at the bottom of your Zoom screen or over on the side, perhaps, maybe in a drop-down menu. We will pay attention to the chat feature if you use it, but it's not going to get as much attention as the question feature. That's where we really want to get the interaction going. Today's webinar is being recorded. We do encourage you to review the video if you need more information, and we also encourage you to share the video with anybody you think that would benefit from watching that. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Brett and have him come on and begin the presentation today.
Thank you, Dan.
Sarah, excuse me.
Yeah. Well,
You give us both.
yeah, we're coming to you live from the firm's headquarters in metropolitan Alexandria, Virginia, just across the river from Washington, D.C. And it's actually a rare treat for us to be together here, actually side by side. Normally, we only get to shout at each other through computer screens. And now
like we'll be able to do with you.
Exactly. Now we're going to shout at you through a computer screen. Thanks to Dan and Teresa and Zach and the whole team at HAI. I'm going to talk a little bit about exactly what the firm OFMK's support for HAI has been and what HAI has put together for its members and is putting together, planning for its members, and also a little bit about the association, the Aeronautical Repair Station Association, which you might recognize Sarah and I from. The two work closely together, so it's easy to confuse one from the other, but I'll kind of give you some insight into how all these different teams work together. I want you to know a little bit about who we represent, who we're speaking on behalf of right now. So you heard the name of the firm, Obadal, Filler, McLeod, and Klein. You notice that Sarah's name is third in the line, but first in our hearts, certainly right now. The firm provides a wide range of services, but particularly assistance with regulatory compliance to aviation certificate holders. It also brings what Sarah calls prophylactic lawyering through the Aeronautical Repair Station Association. So this is where we often have to be very careful in clarifying on whose behalf we're speaking at any given time, because the people of the firm also serve on behalf of ARSA. The work we've done for HAI in terms of developing and helping HAI set up this member benefit has been through the auspices of the firm, but we've also partnered our trade associations together, and we'll give you just a little bit of insight as to why that's useful for the staff of HAI, for the ARSA team, and also for members of both associations. So getting into the description of why we're here today, I actually want to call up our friend Zach, who's been integral in this effort that started last summer, started off with discussions with Sarah. And as you've heard, his bona fides are pretty strong in the rotorcraft industry. And so we'll give him an opportunity to kind of set the stage for us of what we're trying to do here. So Zach, if you're out there and you can join us, we'd love to hear kind of your background for us.
Yeah, hey, Brett. Thanks for the introduction. And Dan, this is a big moment for HAI, and we look forward to rolling this out at Heli Expo 2023 in Atlanta. Long before I came to HAI, I flew for a living. I worked on aircraft for a living to keep the lights on. And when you're out there, we had a saying, every day was a game of bet your certificate, right? Every time you lift it off the ground, every time you put a wrench in your hand, it was a game of bet your certificate. So we had to do everything right. Unfortunately, I knew, several colleagues in my flying career and my maintenance career who fell a little short and came up on the wrong side of the fence when it came to government oversight. So many of us were members of other organizations that provided, legal assistance or legal services to help us out of a bind when we got into a crunch. When I came to HAI and I stopped flying for a living, I was shocked to see that HAI didn't provide those services to our members. So I began this quest back in 2017, and it's taken a long time, but through time and perseverance and having the right people at the right place at the right time, we saw the opportunity to get some traction with it. So what we did was we looked for some assistance, and OFM&K came to the rescue to help us out. I'm not a legal person, nor are any of the other pilots or operators that have changed uniforms and now work for HAI. So we needed some legal assistance with that. So your firm came to help us out, and we're appreciative of that. So the vision came from knowing that there are pilots and mechanics and small operators out there, businesses, who may not have the legal resources to have a big legal staff to help them, in time of need. So what we want to do is put that together. Now we're still in the beginning stages of this, and I think that throughout your presentation you will highlight that. But we are on the path now to bring this to our members, and we're extremely happy to do it. So that's where we are. We want to help out those small operators, those small businesses, and we want to help out individual pilots and mechanics to help them, give them the education that it takes to, one, stay out of trouble, and then if they fail to, follow the guidance, then maybe we'll have the resources to get them the help that they might need to keep their certificate and keep the lights on.
He was very persistent, Brett. You might want to remind Zach that persistence was not that kind of a thorn in the side at times. So Zach, I really appreciate it, because I wouldn't have been able to help or to be inventive with you and Mike and others on the HAI team to be able to get this ball rolling. And Brett will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that we're just trying to help get it started. It's not anything that we want to take any more pride in than that. I think HAI will be able to take it from here and do some great things in the years to come. But this starting point, I think the way we got just right, considering the fact that HAI's main membership is not an individual pilot or mechanic, but corporations. So, and a lot of them are small businesses. So that's where our focus started, and we'll be able to roll out better and more services as HAI matures in this directory.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Zach. And I know when you say you're not a legal person, you mean you're not a legally minded person, but I can assure you that legally you are a person and we respect you as such.
Well, thanks for that.
And as I'm often telling people, Zach, it's the pilots and mechanics and certificate holders that practice this law every day. So you may not be legally minded, but unfortunately you're responsible for compliance. And the final thing I'll say is that in my view, this is still America where we are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And I'm hoping as we roll this out and people become more familiar with the legal process, we won't immediately condemn somebody just because they got a letter of investigation.
Yeah.
Or even a notice of proposed civil penalty or certificate action. The government isn't always right, people. So that's one of the reasons that we really are anxious for you to learn some more on the basic rules.
That's a great point, actually, because Sarah talks all the time about what we call the layman lawyers, right? Everybody, individuals in aviation have to be able to perform as layman lawyers. And on the ARSA side, I'm not a lawyer, which means you can trust me more or less, depending upon your experience with lawyers personally. But I write a lot of our layman lawyer content on the ARSA side because the intent is, to digest and translate regulatory compliance and legal information for individuals that have to know it, have to exercise it, but never took a law school class or,
It also proves that you can train almost anybody to read.
Still working on it.
Yeah, so pilots and mechanics out there, they want to do the job, right? They want to represent their companies well. They want to represent themselves well, and sometimes in the context of completing that job or that mission, they may find themselves astray. So I'm hopeful that we're putting together a package that will give them the educational tools that they need to stay out of trouble, and then down the road we'll see how far we can take this service for our members.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Zach. I'll let you drop back off of your active camera because you gave us a perfect segue. Actually, you did a great job talking about how HAI is providing a member benefit in the form of resources that can educate and help individuals to know where trouble is and how to avoid it, but also provides opportunities for searching for legal counsel and assistance. And so as we walk through the rest of this presentation, we're going to talk in some detail about this searchable legal directory, which really has been a key focus of this effort and is the centerpiece of this new benefit that's being provided to HAI members, but also how we're packaging that, how HAI is packaging that, and how the firm has helped to guide the creation of that package so that there are resources for not just bad days, because Sarah's fond of saying people only call her when they're having a bad day, but how you keep yourself out of bad days, keep your days good by staying smart and maintaining compliance. So that's our description for our training here. And to Zach's point, I do want to give you a little bit of history because OFMK was regularly represented in an old paper legal directory that was produced by HAI for many years. The oldest example we have is from 2006.
Yeah, so it's probably 10 or 15 years that they kept that printable copy. And thanks to Mike and other people at HAI, we made it a hell of a lot simpler.
Yeah,
Yes.
let me, I'll jump off the screen here, but I wanted to follow up with one final thing or thought here. More so now than we've experienced in the past, you have folks at HAI who are still flying, right? I'm not flying for a living, but I still fly for fun. I still fly airplanes and helicopters on a weekly basis. I still work on aircraft on a weekly basis. So does Jim, so do others in the flight ops department. So it's important for our members to know that we're not out of touch. And when we see things like this, we want to fix it, right? We want to give our membership, everything that we can in the toolbox. So over the last few years, through changes in time, We've seen this, and this is just one example of how we're trying to bring better benefits to our membership. So Brett and Sarah, thanks for coming on to outline this service right now or this benefit, and I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. We appreciate how well you teed us up. So on that history front, it was a printable directory. The firm, in the form of Sarah and her law partner, Marshall Filler, were always represented. It was developed through sponsorships or recommendations where HAI members would recommend legal counsel they had used in the past. So there was this network effect of a recommendation or a sponsorship coming from a fellow industry professional who was suggesting an attorney or a law firm legal counsel that they'd utilized and ostensibly gotten some benefit from. The lawyers were given the opportunity to submit their information and pay a fee and appear in this printed directory that was then distributed. And it could be a tool to browse either by state, or it had indexes by practice area, and also an alphabetical listing if you were looking for someone particular. It was a classic old kind of Facebook before that term meant what it does to us today. It was managed by an external law firm, not this one, that basically operated administratively to collect applications and then publish and make available the document in the directory. And I still have the 2017 version sitting on my desk, which, if it wasn't the last, was pretty close to the last. And while, as Sarah said, as Zach said, we've gone far beyond that resource in terms of usability, and you're going to learn a little bit about how the process has been built. But that was the starting point of where we came from. So an endorsement letter, a request for endorsements, would go out from HAI to its membership. There was a basic application that allowed individuals to fill out their basic information and share their areas of practice and aviation experience. And then it was posted, as you'll see on the right, with our friend Mr. Cunningham from Texas, so that you could see their specific areas of practice, their background, some information about their aviation experience, and you could then contact them directly and the relationship would continue from there. So that model informed how this directory was born, with a lot of different kind of key steps and advantages in terms of how it's constructed. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. I do want to give you this background that I promised in terms of how this resource has been built. So Zach went way back before the summer of 2022, but I'll be a little bit narcissistic and only calculate the timeline from when Sarah told me we were doing it, which was when we had an engagement agreement between OFMK, our law firm, and HAI. And what's important for you to recognize is that agreement was about standing up these resources and providing guidance and instruction for how they could be utilized and some facilitation for getting through the discussions that were needed to build them. The resources themselves, they're not OFMKs, they're HAIs. They belong to HAI's members. They're meant to be grown through membership and utilized through membership. We're not going to vanish into the ether.
Well, because we're going to be the first ones in the directory.
Exactly. Look at these faces. Hopefully, you'll see them in bright lights and shining colors when you go into the directory. We'll talk about how that works and how that search works.
Well, actually, that dang Teresa has to explain that.
Yes, thank goodness for Teresa, because she can give you those details. We don't want to make her nervous.
Well, I ain't any more nervous than she is. We got to relax her.
So I did note that we manage, wearing slightly different hats, the Aeronautical Repair Station Association. At the same time that that engagement was signed between the firm and HAI, we also codified, put some ink on digital paper, so to speak, an official exchange agreement between HAI and ARSA. ARSA represents primarily approved maintenance organizations and holders of FAA repair station certificates, but also operators, parts producers, manufacturers, everybody across what we call the regulatory chain. And the association's expertise is in regulatory compliance and interpreting and reading the plain language of the aviation safety rules. So we form exchange relationships with great organizations like HAI that allow staff at those organizations to get access to the resources and expertise of our association, and then exchanging that back and forth, which allows opportunities for personnel who are supporting you through HAI to also have resources where they can find more information about regulations, dealing with guidance, understanding the plain language, where they can engage through other activities in the industry that ARSA is leading, and really kind of bring the work that's done prophylactically on behalf of the industries closer together. And Sarah, you've really led that effort.
Well, but Jim is your president is very involved in trying to make sure that if HAI isn't available to support a member, that another trade association is, or that we're knowledgeable about what we do, so we're not working at cross purposes. As you know, nothing in Washington gets done unless everybody kind of agrees. And if one trade association wants one thing from the FAA or Congress, and they ask another trade association, that before we tended to step on each other. Now we're trying to say, look, we don't have anything against what HAI is trying to do. And in fact, we support them in workforce development and things like that, so that we don't have to stretch our resources to an nth degree. Also, if you look at our membership, or NBAA's membership, or AOPA's membership, we share a lot of members. We shouldn't be trying to compete when you as members are willing to understand that one trade HAI represents the rotorcraft industry. I represent the repair station. Sometimes we need to collaborate. And Jim is really behind that because he was inside the agency and saw how even when trade associations agreed, sometimes the agency tried to use it against them instead of for them. So that's all collaborative. Yes, I'm a lawyer. And yes, I helped with the legal directory, but I'm also a trade association executive. And I basically said, gosh, you guys can do this internally. Just make these people members so that they are part of your community, and point out that they're lawyers, and do it just like you're doing the rest of your membership, which Teresa can explain in a minute. And you go to the Heli Expo, you're going to see here, you want a distributor, here's where you can find them. You want a manufacturer, here's where you can find them. Let's not make it complicated like it was in the past, where you were going out to an outside source to find lawyers. Lawyers are pretty easy to find, by the way. I just want you to know. Get in trouble, they'll probably call you, not me, but there are lawyers that will.
As far as I know, your face has never been on a bench, like a
No, not yet.
law ad.
There's a lot of scribbling on bathroom walls, but not benches.
So stepping out of the ARSA realm and back into HAI, working with the firm to build these legal resources, our timeline again started with an engagement last summer. Our team and HAI's team worked incredibly diligently, and there were a lot of different steps in the process, decisions made regarding how the flow was going to work, looking at existing membership, how it was built, how this directory and these resources could fill into what's already available and being done for HAI's team, and so it'd be most valuable for members. And we got the majority of that kind of planning and content work done just about around Christmas of last year, with the plan for an official rollout at Heli Expo coming up in just a couple of weeks. And now we are assisting in communications about these various things so that you can make most advantage of them. So I want to talk a little bit about staying out of trouble. So we really focus on the legal directory. It's the centerpiece of this effort. It's what brought us together in terms of directly performing this work. But an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So in terms of legal resources, what HAI is also creating a platform to allow for the availability of is other legal resources beyond just being able to find attorneys or legal counsel. And those resources come in the form of regulatory research guides and downloadable information, the same type of things we use around the office to conduct our own research in order to go to the US Code of Federal Regulations or the statutes, or jump into the FAA's new shiny dynamic regulatory system in order to search background details on orders or ACs or legal interpretations or ADs. There's a lot out there. And so we provide kind of primers for you on how to make sense of all of these different sources of information. So those resources are one component of what's available. We're also going to, both directly through the firm, but also with encouragement to other practitioners, be developing more webinars on specific legal topics, articles and editorials on legal and compliance topics. Now, those resources don't constitute legal advice. We always make perfectly clear when we give training that the training isn't necessarily directed at the specifics of any particular instance. But what they do is they help arm you for compliance, give you the background and the tools that you need in order to go and find the details related to what you're expected to comply with. And I like to point out, Sarah's been in the industry for
too many years,
many decades, and all of those gray hairs are the result of certificate holders and applicants and people at the FAA.
Don't blame it on my client.
Sure. Well, every time I've worked with Sarah, when there's a question about a rule, and she can just about recite Part 145, chapter and verse, but she never does. She always goes to the Code of Federal Regulations, and if we're talking about 145, 109, she'll pull it up and we will read it verbatim, and you discover new things even as you're doing it.
Right, that's what, the only time I ever make mistakes is when I don't go and actually read the words. And as my husband will tell you, I never make mistakes, so. I kind of like Nikki Haley, who's now running for president. Somebody said to her, "Nikki, you must have been confused." And she said, "With all due respect, I don't get confused." So I think it's the same thing with me. We are also going to ask them for these webinars and training is during this webinar, and in the future, we're going to be asking members, tell us what you need to hear so that we can get an expert on, and maybe do a couple of webinars on, like Stump the Lawyer. And again, these are going to be hypothetical questions because we obviously can't over a webinar, research whether or not you're actually telling us the truth and whether or not the facts that you're providing are all the facts that we need to look at. But we can certainly help you find your way. I often tell people that I try to, teach them to fish. Again, my husband will tell you there's a lot of fat fish out there because I keep throwing bread upon the water and they just eat it. But it's very important. You practice this law. Whoever's listening to this, if you're a certificate holder, you're the one that practices this law. So when you come to me and say, did I do it right or wrong? We're going to go back and forth. You're going to have technical knowledge that I don't have. And don't forget that lawyers don't really tell you what to do. They give you options. And they should be telling you the pros and cons of what you want to accomplish. These are your advisors. Just make sure that you go into asking for that advice with some knowledge of what you're looking for, as opposed to completely depending upon the other to, help you out.
Yeah, in terms of sharing those kinds of things you need help with, one of the things we do on the ARSA side, and we're looking at ways of making it more publicly available, is, one of ARSA's main benefits is access to regulatory expertise, primarily in the form of Sarah, though the team works together on a lot of them. And then each month in our member periodical, we always publish at least one sanitized question. We take out identifiable information because it's indicative of an issue we've heard a lot about, or it's really, really interesting in terms of how it forced us and the member to kind of dive into the nuances of the rule. And we've talked a little bit with HAI about having resources like that too, that spill into, a member ask style FAQ resource where you can see if you have a question about, personnel qualifications, you can see what else has been asked by members and benefit from that work before even having to go elsewhere for it. So we have a lot of opportunity. HAI has a lot of opportunity for what it can do with these resources over time.
Back then, we just kicked the snowball down the hill, and I believe there's a lot of snow for it to gather on the way down the mountain.
Particularly in the Western United States.
Right now,
where it's about to snow heavily. So I mentioned the resources that we provide and the tools in our research guide that we have given to HAI and will help make available, but they fall back to the law, which drives the rules in terms of Congress passes laws, they become part of our statutes, and they drive not just the authority of the government personnel who regulate the industry, but also in many cases determine what those regulations can do. And then you find them in the Code of Federal Regulations. So I also mentioned the dynamic regulatory system, which is a very important resource. We hope it continues to become more and more useful. It can.
The more you know about what you're looking for, the easier it is to find. You know that's true about everything. But what we're really trying to say here, ladies and gentlemen, is please send in information or requests to HAI as we go along, so that we know what you're looking for, so that we can shape the legal resource page, which is what really Brett's talking about. You're going to have a legal resource page, and we can get more stuff up there, you know, forms for things and things like that. That you shouldn't have to look beyond HAI for that are specific to your representation.
All right, so we've made it there, Sarah.
Is this Teresa's? Do you think she's breathing?
Oh, Teresa is ready. She's been shadow boxing off camera. She is ready to go.
Okay, Teresa.
All right, Teresa Farmer, why don't you join us on the stage, as it were? Because I actually want to start off by giving Teresa a lot of credit. The HAI team has been fantastic, but in situations like this where you're working together, you need a whisperer who can kind of make sense out of what both sides are trying to get to and make real the decisions that have been made. And one of those key decisions was having individuals who want to be in the legal directory, legal professionals, join HAI as members, which we think is wonderful on a whole bunch of fronts. One, it allows the HAI team to manage the process in ways it already has in its membership processes. But also it shows that these individuals, the lawyers that you're finding, are committed to being part of the HAI group. So Teresa, why don't you come up here and talk to us about this a little bit?
Well, I thank you for having me and introducing me. We are excited about this new benefit. What I'm most excited about is, as Brett touched on, watching it grow and watching it get legs and grow into bigger and better things. I'm super excited to watch that. I will start today by showing you a little screenshot here of the actual membership application. So if you're a lawyer and you're on our legal resources page and you want to get in on this amazing opportunity, you're going to start by filling out an application. Your dues are going to be based on your annual gross revenue. And then you'll see all the check boxes where you can pick what types of law you practice. That will also be shown in the legal directory. And then of course, we're going to ask you to certify that. Brett, you want to go to the next page?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then once you are admitted, you will receive an onboarding letter that gives you specific instructions about how to go and set up your profile. That letter is shown on the right. On the left-hand side of the screen is what your profile looks like. So you have the opportunity to put in the state or states that you practice in and all of your notable experience. All of that will then funnel to the legal directory.
Yes.
And this now is a screenshot of the actual directory, or well, actually the search function of the directory. So this is where you would pick what you'd want to see and how you'd want it filtered. And then the next page is going to be the actual results. So we've put in some fake names here, and in the actual directory there will be a photo. So this is where
If they give you one, right,
Yes.
Teresa? I mean, otherwise it shows up as the devil, right?
No, but this is the actual results page, and we just wanted to make it easy for everybody. I mean, this topic can be daunting enough, and so our goal here was to just make this easy to use, easy for the member to use, easy for the lawyer to join, and make it a truly win-win process.
So talking through that process, just to make clear, Teresa, when you were showing the initial application, that's the lawyer law firm experience, right? In joining HAI and sharing information about areas of practice, experience, competencies, those sorts of things. And then once HAI has run its membership process, that individual, that law firm becomes available through the directory, and they're searchable for the rest of HAI's membership.
Right. So if you could just go back one page for us, love, then if you are looking for a lawyer, you can ask for an aviation-centric lawyer or a general lawyer or somebody that does both. and you'll be able to pull up, and then, and I want it in the state of Florida, then it'll pull up the directory on the next page. And of course, you won't get Ally McLeod or, you know,
Ben
Ben
Matlock.
Menlock, but you might get Perry Mason, because, you know, they keep
They're
trying to
back.
bring him back.
HBO, yeah, HBO is
But,
back.
you know, yeah, I mean, that, our thought process is it's gonna be just like almost any other membership, except the categories are different. So once again, once Teresa gets this really activated, we're in the final throes of testing it. We are the test case. Of course, we've always been a test case, so poor Teresa is still trying to learn how to deal with all of that. I'm not a normal lawyer, Teresa, I'm so sorry. Right, I keep telling people I don't want to go to court. Please keep me out of court, because I'm not gonna, and poor Teresa has it. And also I run the trade association, but the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that these people are going to be members. They're not just going to pay $150 and be in a directory. They are going to commit to HAI's code of conduct. And of course, they have to certify that there are good standing members of the bar, etc. And Brett's going to go through in just a minute. This isn't where you stop looking, because you as a member can also refer somebody to Teresa. Look, this guy is really good in XYZ. Why don't you go find out if he wants to be a member of HAI and expand that expertise to everybody at HAI. We're very helpful, that lawyer. That way you are getting people not only that are directly interested in your business and want to join that trade association, even though obviously the benefit to them is to be in the directory, but that we thought was a real positive step.
But think about the tools that they get, right? Because
Well,
I
sure,
can't,
the lawyer tools also, and if I'm a general lawyer and I want to be able to help somebody in aviation, this would be a chance for them to do some learning.
yeah, and to be able to see all the member communications and understand what's going on in the industry and what's important and what HAI is pushing, it ties all that together. And you make a great point about general attorneys, because we did some research on the ARSA side. We ran a monthly quick question for members about seeking legal counsel. And we found that of our respondents, the vast majority wanted or said they would prefer a referral from a colleague and some kind of aviation experience with the legal representative, even when they were seeking issues that weren't
Like
aviation.
like tax consultants or things like that. I mean, everything you want to feel special to a consultant, and you should when it's a lawyer, because they are supposed to be an advocate, strong advocate.
Teresa, thank you very much. Thank you for all your help. We'll let you drop off as we go through.
This was her first time on camera, isn't that what we were?
Well, her first webinar, she said.
First webinar. Okay.
So we're gonna, maybe we should send her some kind of nice, gift and recognition.
I don't know.
of
We
this.
have to check with the people that are actually watching, because we love her already. You could have done no wrong for us.
The feeling is mutual. I've enjoyed this project working with you both. Thank you.
All right, good. She's buttering us up on camera.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa.
Next week, we're gonna pay for that.
All right, so for the last little bit of our discussion, and we're open for any questions about the details of the work that's been done so far. I know the HAI team is looking forward to gathering feedback. At the very end, we're going to share a contact email for you, kind of our ask to come back with information, contacts that could be useful, could be good for the directory, information like Sarah said that you think would be useful to have in legal resources so that the association can build them out. But before we get to that, we're going to take a little bit of advantage of Sarah's expertise, because she has written, among thousands of other things, a piece that will be coming out in HAI's communications in the very near future about the experience and challenges of finding legal representation. So we've talked about, making yourself smart to begin with, but you find yourself looking for assistance from a legal counsel. And in her article, she lays out some really important reminders, and I'm going to step through those with her very briefly. So the first one, and I put one of our favorite firm expressions on here for you, Sarah, in terms of starting early, is if you're in a hole, stop digging.
Yeah, the first rule of holes. The first rule of holes is when the Indians stop digging. So before you respond to something like from the FAA or any action, a manufacturer or a fellow, your employee, whatever. Please don't make it more if you're unsure of your position vis-a-vis the law in your state or in your country or wherever. All right, start seeking advice. And you can even start with the professionals you already know. If you are using an accountant and you find yourself in legal trouble, yeah, maybe the tax accountant won't know anybody but tax lawyers, but he may know other lawyers. So the first place is, hey, kind of get your own ducks in a row. I always, like Brett says, I would rather have you go look at the law yourself or find a regulation yourself and then respond to or find a legal counsel or a tax counsel or a consultant. Quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, most of my competition are ex-FAA officials or consultants who are helping somebody get certified. And then they run into a problem in the certification process, or the consultant is, we're actually working for the FAA, not the certificate holder. And all of a sudden Sarah's name comes up, and I'm going to go be a fire breathing dragon to the agency. That's not what works, doesn't work that way. In aviation, you're responsible. The applicant shall show and the administrator shall find. Unfortunately, over the 40 years that I've been practicing this law, now the agency is telling applicants how to show before it will find. Well, if we just work on this a little bit more diligently about you realizing that no matter what the FAA tells you, verbally or even in writing, if you're not in compliance with the regulation, the agency can come after you. But you approved it. But Sarah, the FAA has approved it. Please read. It doesn't matter if they've approved it. They have approved a lot of aircraft that have crashed, and they don't get sued. The manufacturer does. So you're always going to be responsible in the government's mind for showing compliance. So let's help you show compliance. So you get a letter of investigation. Don't go shooting off an answer without talking to somebody or at least reading your options. You get a notice of proposed civil penalty or certificate action. Please, before you respond or before you call up the FAA and try to convince them after they've issued the notice of proposed civil penalty that you're innocent, all you're doing is digging a deeper hole. Please educate yourself. And one of the ways to educate yourself is read the rules yourself. The other way is to try to find good legal counsel. And I'm guessing number 2 is going to tell us how to interview
more than one.
Right.
So query your network to find options. I dropped in the HAI legal directory. Fight the urge to make decisions quickly if you feel pressured by your situation.
Right.
Because, and I'm going to jump directly into 3, you need to test the capability of the individuals and the firms that you're working with. And you do that by engaging and asking questions to figure out if they're familiar with the details associated with the matter. And I'll go one more, Sarah, and then we'll be able to hear from you. You need to tell your story in presenting the facts that are involved and the details related to the actions by the agency or other parties that are involved, timeline and schedule details, and then engage in conversation with potential legal counsel about what is really going on.
Right, and you don't have to, I mean, most lawyers will say, well, before I can represent you, I'm going to have to find out who the other party is. Well, when the FAA is the other party, it's pretty easy to get representation because I'm not representing the FAA, so there's no conflict. Although the FAA, I do a lot of work for the FAA, I don't represent them. We all do a lot of work for the FAA and don't get paid for it, but that's a different issue. Please make sure that you have the 5 or 6 salient facts in front of you, or if you've gotten a notice of proposed civil penalty or a letter of investigation, you know what that letter of investigation was about 90% of the time. It was followed an audit, and the audit told you what the FAA was concerned about or what have you. That's when you make sure that your lawyer is asking the right question, or the lawyer that you are contemplating hiring. If you call me, I'll cross-examine you right from the beginning. Well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? I'll interrupt you 27 times, and you probably won't hire me after that anyway. Good. But the bottom line is that they should be asking you as many questions as you're asking them. And if they're not asking you those questions, really assess their availability, how many other clients may be on their plate at the time, your timeline. So a notice of civil penalty usually gives you 30 days to respond. You could ask for an informal conference, so you have time to assess it. Obviously, emergency revocations are not so easy, and letters of investigation supposedly give you 10 days, or it will be forwarded without benefit of your input. Well, okay, if it's going to go to a notice of proposed civil penalty or a notice of certificate action, you'll get your input later. It may stop. A letter of investigation can stop at a letter of investigation and never go to formal legal action. And the legal advisor, if you had such a thing, should be able to tell you that. And obviously, we're talking about aviation-centric law. It's the same thing with bankruptcy or tax, or I'm looking for somebody that understands how to put a heliport on top of my building. Any of that sort of stuff. You need to be able to assess whether they're actually going to be able to give you the time. Because time is what you're buying from a lawyer.
Yeah, and the ability to also understand and direct work so that they can support you with counsel, which brings us to kind of these follow-up points, right? Things to remember. Sarah, you made this point earlier. You're seeking advice, right? Your lawyer doesn't dictate your action and shall not judge it. What you do is up to you.
Right.
And you are accepting that counsel in assistance of what you do, but you are the person in the legal sense, to go back to Zach's personhood, you're the person in the legal sense that the agency is dealing with.
Right. I'm not going to pay your fine. I mean, I'm serious here. In this instance, the aviation-centric lawyer has to completely understand that it's your responsibility to show compliance. And if you haven't shown compliance, not you haven't satisfied the FAA local inspector, that doesn't necessarily mean compliance. If he doesn't understand the difference between compliance and a business decision, you also have to question him. I'm going to tell you, you don't have to do that. The regulation doesn't require you to do that, but you're going to be harassed for the rest of your life by that aviation safety inspector. Hell, if it's only going to cost you a couple of $100 to comply with their direction, great. However, if it's something that's going to walk you into a violation with the next aviation safety inspector that you run across, and you'll have to change it back, then I'm going to suggest you fight it. And you say, Sarah, I'm giving it up. Just put it in the manual. I'll put it in the manual. And don't come back to me, because you'll get, I told you so. I'm just kidding. Look, I'm not the one that has to show compliance. You are.
And actually, you brought up a great point that ties back to our being prepared ahead of time, being educated ahead of time, is that the person and the individual in front of you representing the FAA is not always in the right. And sometimes the smart first step is at least even being able to recognize that you can and should question that fact.
Correct.
Rather than jumping.
And then how to question it, right? Because the FAA may have a compliance philosophy, but the compliance philosophy is do what I say or you'll get hurt. And that's not, it's not comply with the regulations, it's comply with local inspector preference.
And orders and guidance.
And orders and guidance.
We can do an entire presentation on our strong feelings about the place of guidance compared to the plain language of the rules. So we've made it to the we need your help slide. So HAI is in the process of constructing an incredible platform that will be a great resource for its members. The way that members can support it being such a great resource is by sharing information, engaging in the process and the discussion. So just in the last 22 hours, the HAI team has produced an email address, which is just referrals rotor.org, which is a conduit into the HAI team for lawyers you have worked with, membership suggestions, information you'd like to see. It's basically an open platform for you to seek information and provide recommendations and referrals to the HAI team for them to act on. So it's really a great new resource for you to start getting some input and impact into these resources that are being put together by the membership team. So
also to increase the membership, right? I mean,
Yes.
we really want that legal directory to grow. Otherwise we're not going to be able to take further steps, which in Zach's mind is to actually have a service by which lawyers agree to, have reduced rates for HAI or give an hour free consultation. Which reminds me, when you do go to a lawyer, if he's charging you from the first hour, I would suggest you find another one, because the bottom line is any lawyer should be taking at least half an hour, if not an hour, to determine whether or not they can even help you. Oftentimes I can help somebody in 10 minutes because I'm not the lawyer that they need.
yeah,
And you need to look for some of that honesty, especially small businesses that just don't have a dollar to waste.
yeah, we put on one of the earlier slides, but it's worth saying, right? A trusted counsel also knows when to refer you somewhere else.
Correct.
So that's something to be on the lookout for. Not that they're untrusted if they don't refer you somewhere else, because they might be.
They actually know.
Yeah, exactly.
But your job is to refer the lawyers that you trust to HAI so that fellow members, and especially your smaller businesses, can benefit.
All right, Dan, wherever you are out there, we've gotten to the question slide. We've got about 9 minutes left in our hour. So we'll turn to you for any Q&A.
Well, this is an awkward situation, but I think you guys have done quite a brilliant job. We don't have any questions at the moment.
That means
Um,
everybody was
that's
Yeah,
not to
that means
say-
we put him to sleep, Dan. I mean, it's nice of you to put a positive spin on
Yeah,
it.
well, you can go tapping on the window, something, see if we can wake people up, but yeah, no, chances are somebody might come up with a question here in the last minute or so that has been waiting. So no, I appreciate that you took the time to come on, and all the time that it's been leading up. I think we started talking, Sarah, back in October or November about this, knowing that it was
Well,
gonna take
right,
some time.
yeah.
To get
I mean,
rolling.
Zach had been bugging me for almost a year before that, though, Dan. The communication guy doesn't know about communication until it becomes urgent.
Yeah, October, November was the point where we started saying, where's Dan? We need Dan.
Yeah,
We need Dan in on this.
the communication guy has to know about the meetings before he can talk about them. So,
Yeah, exactly.
something we talked about, a couple weeks ago. There are no new legal problems, from what you were telling me. So chances are, there's going to be lawyers who will have experience addressing some of these issues that people have. So. Okay, actually, we are starting to get questions. I'm going to go ahead and read them right out of the question module so that we
Always
can
fun.
save a little bit of time. Question from Gary: what do you think about Martindale as a resource? I'm not even sure what Martindale is.
Martindale-Hubbell is a resource of all of the lawyers that decide to pay for a resource, that pay for a listing. And I think it's a great place to start, Gary. I mean, any place that you can at least start looking for lawyers that have, unlike me, who has a reputation, so that's where you find out about me. They actually pay, or they're larger law firms. Yeah, I mean, Martindale-Hubbell is a great resource, but you're going to have to still interview.
Okay.
I mean, Google's a great resource.
I don't know. We may have to have Zach come on to help ask this one or answer this one, but how will this service compare to AOPA's legal services?
Because this is, AOPA has a legal services that you pay XYZ amount and you're guaranteed a lawyer at XYZ dollars. We're working towards that. If it becomes successful enough or is needed enough, that is what Zach first looked at, right? But what we ran into, I'm sorry, this is going to be legalese, but what we ran into is that AOPA only represents individuals. HAI represents companies that employ certificated individuals. So you'd almost have to come up with 2 or 3 different layers of services. So for right now, what we wanted to do is get names of lawyers that were interested in your business out in front of you. Great question, by the way. Zach, did you feed that question to him?
Zach asked it under a pseudonym.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't put them up to that, but that's, I love your answer because that's the pathway we want to go down. We just don't have the resources right now. We're building resources to get to that level.
And Zach, don't forget that there is AOPA out there now.
Oh, yeah,
If you're
yeah.
an individual, HAI isn't going to shoot you because you go and become a member of another trade association that's giving you something that HAI can't right now. That's Jim's whole point of coordinating with us too, Zach. It's not like you're going to give up AOPAs. It's not like you were forced to give up AOPA membership because you joined HAI. They didn't say, all right, you can't join any other trade association. So I encourage people that need that kind of help now to go.
Exactly. You work to the strengths of everybody.
Exactly.
Gary had a follow-up asking about the lawyer to lawyer reviews on Martindale, if how well they are respected, perhaps is a better way to say it than how he might have phrased it.
I don't know. Am I in there, Gary? I'm just kidding, love. I mean, to me, lawyers referring to other lawyers. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't go to make speeches in front of lawyers. Lawyers don't hire lawyers. You hire lawyers. I mean, what another lawyer may think of me may be just the opposite of what's true because I kicked his tuchus or her tuchus. So again, I mean, I guess I don't trust any single source, Gary. I really like to look, geez, when I'm researching things for my house, we're looking at a, drawer microwave. I'll go to 5 or 6 different reviews, 10 different reviews. If the same person or the same thing starts showing up on 4 or 5 of them, I go, okay, maybe I will buy GE, even though I hate them.
And then we end up with a 10-minute diversion in the staff meeting. The microwaves.
Gary, I hope this is helpful. I'm not trying to make light of this, honest good sir. What I'm trying to say is no single source. I, as a paranoid lawyer, do not trust any single source. Trust but verify. Now watch, he's a lawyer that has been.
As long as he appears in the HAI legal directory, and his alphabetical listing is right beneath ours.
Okay, well, that does appear to be the only questions we have today. Sarah, Brett, maybe we can get Zach and Teresa to bring their cameras back up too, just real briefly.
Are you trying to share?
I'm trying to stop.
There we go. No, I was just going to, I do need to share here in a minute, but no, I just wanted to express my appreciation to all 4 of you for taking on this project. I know that this has been obviously an ongoing project longer than I was aware of it. I'm glad that we're getting this ball rolling because it sounds like it is something that we definitely have a need for in the industry. And so the fact that you guys are able to take time out of your schedule, especially this close to Heli Expo, to talk about it, to help enlighten the members and to get this ball rolling, really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, you have supported this law firm and ARSA for years. HAI has. I've been training at HAI for almost 20 years now. So it was a pleasure to give back.
Yeah, come find Sarah at Heli Expo.
Sarah, are you teaching class this year?
I've taught rotor safety and education.
The firm is doing 4 professional education courses. Sarah's leading 2 of those, though her fingerprints are always all over every training you do. And then she's doing 3 rotor safety challenge sessions on Tuesday.
Dirty fingerprint records just for you, Zach.
I may come sit and watch these just for the sheer entertainment value. Okay, well, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get things wrapped up now. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And there we go. We still have more webinars to come. We know that there's going to be some changes after Heli Expo. Right now, our current webinar for post-Expo is going to be actually the following week after Expo. We were supposed to have one scheduled for March 9th. March 9th is the tail end of Heli Expo. We're not going to have anything live that day. March 16th, right now, we tentatively have State of the Industry, Jim's Viola's press conference that he'll be giving during Expo. We're going to record it so you can get his inside look at the industry. There is a chance that there could be a regulatory issue that is coming up that we may preempt this for because we always want to bring you the most current information. And March 23rd, we'll try to follow through with either one of those. Got a typo in there with a 1, please excuse me, Sarah. Webinars, we know that there's a lot of information here. We also provide a lot of other information through HAI. A couple of ways we do it is Rotor Magazine. It's an award-winning publication that comes out every quarter. It's free to everybody. If you do live outside the United States, we do charge for a print subscription to come to you, but we can also send a digital copy for nothing. Rotor Daily is a daily news aggregator. We compile all the daily news that's related to the vertical aviation industry that we can find and put it in one location for your quick and easy reading pleasure. It too is free. You can go to rotor.org/subscribe to sign up for both publications. It's just a quick and easy process, and we will get those started right away for you. Feedback. We always like to know what worked and what doesn't work. We'd love to hear if you have any comments on today's webinar. If you have any ideas for future webinars, please let us know that as well. We also are always looking for, HAI is a membership-based organization. We are trying to offer new membership benefits. We'd love to get your input on those. If you have ideas for other benefits, or if you have ideas about what HAI could be doing for you, for your industry, what we're doing too much of, spending too much time somewhere else, let us know that too. We'd love to hear feedback from the industry, not just the members. Best way to do that, send Jim Viola an email at president@rotor.org. That goes directly to his inbox, and he does share the questions with the staff as appropriate to let us know if we can help out. That concludes our webinar for today. We are grateful that you took time out of your schedule to join us. Until next time, we hope that you are safe, you fly safe, and we'll see you again in March. Thank you.